History shows that India was one of the richest countries in the world before the Britishers came. But when they left, India ended up becoming one of the poorest countries in the world. What that did for us is that it spoiled our relationship with money and the way we thought about it. It was highly influenced by the movies back in the 1960s and 70s, where money was depicted as the root cause of all evil. And people with money were depicted as the evil moneylenders or the Munimjis, the underworld dons or the villains. Now, because of a spoiled relationship with money, Indians have developed a lot of misconception about money and how to deal with it. In today's video, I'm going to talk about 3 things that we should stop doing and 3 things that we should start doing to get smarter with the money that we have. Please subscribe to my channel and let's jump straight into it. So one of the first things that we should stop doing is how we think about real estate. Now, real estate is one of the favorite investment options for all Indians across the country. No matter what piece of land you're buying, where you're buying it, no matter how the deal looks like. As Indians, we think buying a piece of land will always give us good returns and is always a good investment. Now, it can be, but if you're not smart about it, then it can turn out to be one of the worst investments that you've made. You hear the story that, my grandfather bought this piece of land for 5 lakh rupees 20 years ago and it's now worth 1 crore. Now that sounds big, but if you look at the math, 5 lakh turning into 1 crore over 20 years means that they got an annual rate of return of just 12%, which is a lot lesser than what the stock markets have given us over the last 20 years. Now, the next thing that we have a misconception about is Provident Fund. Those of us that are in a job, we obviously don't have a choice because it's a compulsory deduction from our salary. But even so, our parents and our previous generation have told us how Provident Fund is a really nice thing to have. And I even know some of my friends that have gone on to invest more than the stipulated amount into things like a voluntary Provident Fund or the public Provident Fund. Now, do you know that the interest rate on a Provident Fund account right now is just 8.15%? That's even lesser than the real estate example that we talked about, where there was a 12% return. And it gets even worse when you talk about the public Provident Fund, where the interest rate is just 7.1%. That's almost as much as what you would get from a fixed deposit. So you see, investing in a Provident Fund over a period of time, it's true that it will add up to a good amount that you will get when you retire. But your money could have been a lot more. Your money could have done a lot more for you over that period of time had you put that in other smarter investment options. The third misconception is that about insurance. Now, if you ask any Indian, hey, do you do any kind of investment? And they will be quick to answer that, oh yes, I have this LIC policy. You see, the life insurance policies are meant for when things were to go wrong. God forbid you lose your life. That's when the insurance is a good option to have, but it is not a good investment option. The interest rate on your insurance products is just about 7%. It is equivalent to, again, a fixed deposit or the public Provident Fund that we just talked about. So putting money in an insurance is a good thing because you're making sure that on a given day, God forbid something wrong were to happen, you've got some money set aside for yourself or your family. But it is not an option for a good investment. If you want to invest, you should have something more than just your life insurance policy. So those are the 3 things that we should stop doing with our money. 3 things that we should start that we don't do. Firstly, we do not create a difference between our spending and our investing. Most Indians, when we get paid, most of that money, if not all of it, goes into our monthly expenses. But there's a saying, it says, pay yourself first, which means that no matter how much money you make, either through your job or through a business that you may have, the first thing that you should do is set aside some portion of that, preferably 20 to 30%, for investing or saving. And then from the remaining 70% is how you run your household or your household monthly expenses. So pay yourself first and create a difference between what you will spend and what you will invest. The second things that Indians don't do well is creating an emergency fund. Now, in many Indian households, we're struggling to make ends meet. So creating an emergency fund seems like a very far-fetched thing. But if we follow the example that we just spoke about, where we separate the spending and the investing, we should be easily able to create an emergency fund for ourselves. It is recommended that we have anywhere between 6 months to 12 months of monthly expenses added up as emergency fund. But because we don't, in most cases we end up borrowing money in the time of need and then burying ourselves under a mountain of debt because we didn't save up and create an emergency fund. And the third and final thing I want to talk about today is investing in the stock market. Did you know that only about 3% of Indian households actively are invested in the stock market? It's just 3%. That's because we typically are very scared of the stock market. We feel that we don't understand what the stock market is about. More importantly, we feel that if we put in our money, we will end up losing most of it or sometimes all of it. Now that's trading. And there is a difference between trading and investing in the stock market. Trading is when you put in your money and then after a few hours or a few days, take the money out with hopefully some profit. But then there is a lot of risk there of losing your money as well. But investing is not the same thing. Investing in the stock market can be as simple or easy as putting a fixed amount in a recurring deposit every month. So you choose a mutual fund or maybe the index funds, and then you set aside some money, a fixed amount every month to be put inside that. Now about the fear of losing money in the stock market. There was a study done and statistics show that over the last 50 years, if you chose any period, any time to start investing in the stock market, any time in the last 50 years, if you chose to decide to invest in the stock market and then you held on to it for the following 7 years, you would have always made a profit. Let me repeat that. Any time in the last 50 years, if you would have decided to invest in the stock market and held on to it for the following 7 years, you would have always made a profit. The minimum return you would have got is a 14% annual rate of return. So investing is very different from trading, where you actually put in the money. Very similar to how the Provident Fund is, that you put in the money and you keep putting money every month, not necessarily thinking about what the money is doing right now, whether it has gone up or down, because it's a long game that you're playing. And even if you invest for a minimum 7 years, like the example I gave, you will end up making some amount of profit. And if you hold on to it for longer than 7 years, like in the case of Provident Fund, you typically want to hold on to it for 20, 30 years. Imagine if you hold on to your stock investment for that long, chances are that that is going to grow to a really, really big corpus for you by the time you retire. So I hope that this helps you make smart financial decisions for yourself going forward. And I keep making videos about personal finance and personal growth. So if you like this kind of content, please subscribe and please hit the like button. And as I always keep saying, race only against yourself, because then you will always win. See you in the next video.